Um, Before we begin, let's confirm that the meeting has been properly noticed. So I think in the board package, it looks like it was noticed on June 11 and June 16.
Yep.
So it looks like we're good to go. Um, so, okay. Oh, yeah. So present are board members Sean Phillips, Jenny Chu, Francis Baba, Taling Taitano, myself, and Executive Director Dave Sanford. So we actually have a full quorum. First item on the agenda will be the meetings from last month's meeting minutes, which was the
Move
May.
to approve, subject to correction.
Second.
Okay. Okay, approved, subject to correction. And we'll go ahead and move on to the old business. Dave, do you want to do the accountancy endowment fund update?
Sure. Excuse me. At this point, for the first time, the fund has gone over 7 million as of the middle of June. So that
Wow.
means we basically just for this year, we've had a investment increase of 392,000. So, market keeps going up and down, but essentially it's just keeps increasing. I think our contributions were about a little over 5 million. So we've had roughly 2 million of investment income over the last 10 years. It started in 2015, so essentially 2.5 years. The year-to-date performance for this year, calendar 26, is 5.53% through May. So it's holding pretty steady with our target of 6% growth rate. We've paid, if we run back here to the back of the statement, it's the May statement, we've paid $30,861 in fees so far this year, which is about half of what we'll pay for the year, I guess. We made the 300,000 contribution, and then if we look at our realized capital gains and losses, the bottom line is that we've got a net capital loss of 59,700, which put that up against the investment earnings we've had. So even with that, we're still at the 5.53% for the year. In terms of the fund, at 7 million, I guess we're getting closer to our pie in the sky $10 million goal that we started with 10 years ago. It's making progress. Does anybody have any questions about the statement?
Oh, looks good. This is as of May 29th. Is that
right? Yeah. They cut off
on
the 29th.
What it looks like as of today? Were you able to check? Or are you?
Yeah, the 70 million is as of June 16th.
Oh, okay.
On this chart here, the
Oh,
year
this
to
chart.
date. Yeah. This is year to date through June 16th. Puts us at the 77.07 million market value.
Wow. Okay, that's good.
So
just need to use it.
Yeah, kind of hard to argue with. I run this as gross of fees, so the contributions / withdrawals includes the fees the withdrawals or the fees that we are taking out, plus what we spent. I would estimate we've probably spent in the 10 years since we started the fund and then started the program, probably a little over $1 million total in fees for visiting professors and others that have participated in the MAC program, things like that we've been supporting. So that's where it is today. Hopefully, if we can get to 10, then on an average basis, we should be earning enough annually to pay for anything we spend on visiting professor. Because that was estimated at 200,000 a year, and I know we've been a little less than that in the last couple of years.
Okay.
Okay.
So if we get
Okay.
if we get the 10 million, just need 2% return for that 200,000, right?
There you go.
Okay.
Should be relatively easy to maintain after that and just grow. From the visiting professor standpoint, I know, John, you know that the agreement was signed with the new professor that's going to participate for the fall semester. He's going to be on island for 3 months of that semester, and then he'll go back to the States, but he'll continue and wrap it up on a virtual basis. And I think they upped the stipend a little bit, so he'll get the stipend is 40,000 per semester for a full semester. Where you're teaching a minimum of 6 credit hours for a full semester, which would be 2 classes generally, I guess. Plus, provide a day of CPE and some other things that are included in the contract.
Dave, the agreement, I don't think specified the courses he'll be teaching, did it? Or
No, it gives a list of the upper level accounting courses or master's degree courses that he would teach. It lists, financial accounting, auditing, cost accounting, all of the major accounting courses. And it basically says one of, so I guess that is kind of left up to the dean in the negotiation as to which courses are needed, so which courses would be taught. He's also supposed to help develop curriculum and do some, I guess, from our perspective, it would be considered training with our existing faculty on creating the courses and the capstone projects and things like that.
okay.
So I'm guessing the expenses would be 40 for the stipend and maybe another 15,000 or so for the housing, the airfare, the transportation while he's on the island, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So, okay, does anybody have any questions? Well, I guess we'll find out the full details once he's due to arrive sometime, I think in August or I guess August.
August, I think.
Think August or October is supposed to be here.
I think it's arriving mid-August, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
yeah. And he's staying through the end of October. So okay. If there's no other questions, we can move on to the licenses.
Okay. I didn't see anything unusual, or everything looks.
Well, it's the typical. We only have 30 because the ladies are more involved in processing renewals at this point.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of those. I can vouch for that because I'm getting 15 or 20 a day that come through on the generic Guam BOA email address that I'm forwarding to them. So there's a good chunk of revenue coming in that sense. But these 30 licenses, there's nobody from Guam or Saipan, but mostly the usual, India, Japan, that kind of thing.
I have 2 coming. I thought they were going to make it onto this one, but I guess they turned it in too late. So I should have at least 2 for next meeting, hopefully, if they turn it in.
Okay. Well, that's cool. The more the merrier for Guam.
Yeah.
Are they going to stay on Guam?
Yes. Well, they're both working in general. Yes. We'll see.
At
Move
least
to
for a
approve.
couple of years.
Okay. I heard approval. A
Move
motion
to
to approve from Darling. Can I hear a second?
Second.
By Francis. Okay. The applications and license to practice are approved.
Okay, thank you. And we can move on to the NASFA's communications Quarterly communications. I'm just going to recap some of this. I think a lot of it we already know about, but Nicola Nealon is the new chair. She's been at it now for 6 months or so. So she's been involved with the events of the North American Summit held in February, which included the signing of a mutual recognition agreement with the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Then she announced external appointments. There's the various people from NASMA that have been appointed to different things. One to the AICPA Professional Ethics Executive Committee, known as the PEAK. Person from Oregon to the Auditing Standards Board. Two more, 1, 2, 3, 4 people appointed to the AICPA Board of Examiners relative to the CPA exam. And with Nancy Corrigan as the chair of the State Board Committee. And then 2 others appointed to the State Board Committee. So NASBA's beginning to get more people involved in other outside interests also. And Coulter Baker was reporting on the progress he made in planning for the new 26-27 year. He's going to be the incoming chair for 26-27. Coulter's from Texas. He's been around quite a while. He used to chair the UAA committee, and he's pretty good. I think he'd make a good chair too. NASBA is finalizing the signing of the contract for a research vendor as part of the joint CPE task force. They want to do some surveys and stuff relative to CPE because there's a lot of discussion about how much do we need and why do we have so much more than all the other professions that have CPE, like the doctors and the lawyers. So I guess they're going to do some research on that. And then the Center for Public Trust sponsored a CPE as a pilot during the conference. The first time they've actually given CPE credit for their ethics courses. I guess it's the first or second time they've done that. And Wendy Garvin, the EVP for NASBA, discussed emerging issues that NASBA was looking into, which is the freelancing websites that appear to be allowing unlicensed individuals to market the offering of or performance of protected services, as well as individuals using the credentials. Essentially, they run across a couple of websites where people are advertising, for cut rates that you can get an audit or you can get a tax return done, and they're saying, oh, we just take a percentage of the refund, all the stuff that's actually illegal. And some of the research they've done is indicated that these people are claiming that they're CPAs, et cetera, and they are not. They're using stolen identities and that kind of thing. So I don't know how you shut it down. It's just some kind of crazy website that allows people to put whatever they want to up there. But some of the jurisdictions have seen some of their licensees credentials used in the advertising, and unfortunately, those licensees had nothing to do with the actual data that got put up on that website. So they're trying to figure out how to deal with that. And then there's another company offering to assist businesses in becoming SOC compliant. And apparently, there's a number of firms doing this. The firms selected as potential audit firms are actually registered or certified. There are certification mills in countries outside the U.S. and not participating in peer review. So if you have somebody offering to, be sure that you're SOC compliant, you have to be sure they're actually valid and legal in terms of being certified to do that. It's obviously there's a number of nefarious people trying to do this kind of stuff, and some of them, I guess, have gotten jobs that then turned out to be, the certifications turned out to be bogus, and the firms that used them were out and harmed in a number of ways. So NAS was trying to figure out how to deal with it. Also, it's one of those things I don't know how you're going to effectively deal with it, except on a case-by-case basis, unless you can get some kind of legal decree to shut the whole site down. But that's very difficult to do. From an operational standpoint, Bill Emmer's been conducting overviews of NASBA's client and compliance services. And he's walked the board. He's created key metrics for the board to look at, and then he's updated them on matters pertaining to IT governance in his IT projects. He's essentially driving the IT projects, I guess, which is NASBA chatbot, that they call it NASBot, and using artificial intelligence. They want to use some AI features to actually help the staff answer the questions they get when people call in or come in on the chatbot, and let the chatbot do some of the answering. And NASBA's also decided it's going to keep its fee consistent, the exam fee consistent with for the next year of 2027. So the fee won't change, as we saw in the fee correction letter last month. Consolidated revenue for NASBA through 7 months in February 26 was 25 million, which is $500,000 better than budget, resulting from higher CPA exam candidate volume. The total expenses for the same month were 22.6, which is 1.3 million less. So between the 1.3 million less and the 0.4 over, they are 1.7 million over budget in terms of revenues, excess revenues. 2.6 million through February. Year-to-date investment income was 5.5 million. So I'm not exactly sure what they do with the investment income, but they always seem to have a good bit of it. They have significant capital projects for fiscal 26, and it's updated CPA licensing for software development. They're updating the licensing system that's used to track licensees and integrating it with the candidate data that they have. And then when the candidates actually pass, all their data will be transferred, I guess, into the licensing system to keep track of everyone for the ALD standpoint. They're going to have an awful lot of data now, the new licensing system. I think they also have an intention for essentially contracting with the boards to use the software to issue licenses also, because there are a number of boards that keep asking NASBA to create a licensing system that they can use, similar to what they've done with the CPE system. So we'll see what happens, but I think that's part of the thought process there. The new chair, Nealon, provided an update on the strategic planning task force with a timeline and process for prioritizing the activities up to and including when the plan will be operationalized and implemented. That's all based on that, all those interviews that the guy did and created 6 or 7 tasks that needed to be addressed to improve NASBA overall, I guess. The board approved the red line changes as recommended by the CPE committee for the joint statement on standards and CPE to issue a final form subject to AICPA approval. I think we saw those previously. It's not much of a change. It's just more of administrative type stuff. The board approved an educational research grant with 2 others pending. And then the executive director's committee was basically been involved with the biggest issue they have, and what we've discussed in all our executive director meetings is alternative practice structures with private equity being the dominant issue, and how to deal with it when it gets pretty complicated. They've had some webinars on how complicated it can get and who's going to handle it. And NASBA's written a letter about it. Then we had discussions about NASBA membership models within other similar professional organizations are being researched and will be reported back for further discussion. I'm not sure what they have in mind about membership. Maybe it has something to do with dues or determining what they offer from members like ourselves. I guess we'll find out in the near future. The board was given a presentation regarding NASBA's 3-year technology strategy plan by the new chief information officer they just recently hired, this guy named Brant Beard. And then Bill Emmer made a presentation on the future of this Acquio International, which is the arm of NASBA that provides educational evaluations and language translations to individuals across the globe. Ultimately, the efforts will support the mission of NASBA and help to create a sustainable future. So I guess they're looking at, whether it's actually profitable to continue doing it or what. Don't know. I haven't really heard much about that one yet. But I know Acquio's existed for quite a while. So. Then the meetings of the NASBA board of directors moving forward will they've decided to go to a day and a half of in-person meetings each quarter, as well as a 2-hour virtual meeting midway between the regular quarterly meetings. So they wind up with about 8 or 10 meetings a year, not counting the actual in-person meetings during the NASBA meetings themselves. So we'll move on to the January 23rd meeting. The one we just discussed was the April. That's the latest meeting. So in the January 23rd meeting, they discussed that NASBA was actually looking for an individual to be appointed to the Auditing Standards Board. So they did find somebody. They're also looking get somebody on the Financial Accounting Foundation and the Private Company Council, and then another one to the Financial Accounting Standards Board Advisory Council. So that was in January. So they're making some progress with getting NASBA people on a lot of these standards boards and committees. And they talked about we talked about the mutual recognition agreement that was signed. Had one thing about this NASBA diagnostic, the joint NASBA AICPA CPE task force. The AICPA private equity webinars, and they have a key contact person program going on. I guess we'll hear about some of that in the regional meeting coming up. And they hired a new vice president of public relations, so we'll see how that goes. I guess Tom Kenny's been doing so much of it for so long, I think it's gotten to the point where he can't do all the meetings and all the PR stuff also. He's been with NASBA for at least 20 years, I know, 25, maybe 30 years, I'm not sure. But it's about
so
time.
Dave, so Tom retired, or he's still there just being assisted?
No, he's still there. I think it's just about time they found somebody to
help
take
him.
over
Okay.
part of what he's supposed to be doing, because it's grown so much, I know he's been there at least 25, 30 years. So it's about time they actually found somebody to help him out, I guess. There were internal activities. Dustin says that there were 283 attendees, 357 with guests who participated in NASBA's annual meeting in October. These numbers represent an increase over previous years and reminded the board that NASBA offered increased scholarships to encourage attendance. And I think that's part of the fact that there are a number of us that complained about the fact that they keep having a good bit of excess revenues and they're still charging us for registration fees. The ICPA pays for everything. They reimburse you everything, and they don't charge a registration fee for a council meeting. So,
Wow.
kind of makes you wonder what NASBA's doing with their money sometimes. So I've been one of the ones that kind of complained about the fact that you make a good bit of money every year, and you still charge us $895 to register for a meeting. So I guess they've decided that they should loosen the strings a little bit and add more people to the meeting. Wendy was meeting with let's see, meeting with the PCAOB, the GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, International Ethics Standards Board, the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board, and NASBA, and with IFAC. So she's been pretty busy. NASBA also sponsored a webinar on the alternative practice structures, and that was held in February. I think that's the one that showed how complicated all those relations could become, and pretty much gave us all the impression that there was no way in hell you could actually regulate some of the issues that are being considered ethics-wise, as to who's independent and who's not, and who could be influenced or who could not be influenced. Anyway, we'll have to wait and see what they come up with ultimately. NASBA and the ICPA held an interim summit meeting as a follow-up to the regular meeting, discussing some of these things. The mutual recognition agreement, staffing changes to some of the retirement at the AICPA. I think Jim Braxton is actually retiring from the peer review process. The fall council meeting, Dustin served on a panel discussing deregulation, as well as the chair, Maria Caldwell, the outgoing chair, made a presentation at the council meeting. And I don't know what the NASBA's annual visit to the Ohio Board of Accountancy means. And I guess Dan has some check-ins with some of the people he's dealt with over the years. So supposedly that's the way he keeps his thumb on the pulse of what's going on with the boards. Kent reports on the state board outreach. He had a meeting with the Pennsylvania State Board of Accountancy. He's also been visiting several of the other boards, working with the regional directors on the high priority states, which is relative to the ones that are changing their laws or trying to change their pathways or their regulation of the way they regulate or use mobility. And so he works with John Johnson on reviewing the legislation, mobility, legislative stuff that goes on. They're all in full swing, that's for sure. It's still ongoing. John Johnson provided an update on the legislative activity, with 14 jurisdictions filing legislation in 2026. And having the staff review that the safe harbor language from the UAA is being adopted more or less consistently. 32 jurisdictions moved forward with pathways and mobility legislation in 25, with 26 of those being signed into law and 4 rolling over into 26. And only 2 were withdrawn. I think that's the one from Minnesota or Michigan that said that you could become a licensed CPA with an associate's degree. I think that was turned down. There's other bills that John's watching about deregulation, and as in Florida, where they're trying to get through the thing that says nobody needs a license that they tried last time, and the FICPA was successful in helping kill it. So far, I think in this year's sessions, it's been killed also. The DOE proposed ruling that would impact financial aid came out. I guess everybody knows the ICPA argued for language in the preamble that said this doesn't have anything to do with determining whether you're an actual profession or not. So that was actually written. The suggested language was actually written into the preamble of the ruling that was issued. So at least we got that concession.
Hi, sorry. Can somebody let me my phone in? I got to switch from my computer to my phone. So if whoever's letting people in, if someone can let me in. Thanks.
Okay. Get in there. You sure that's your phone, Tolly? It says it's not your phone. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
I need to
Okay.
change that to my name.
Okay. Well, at least we know it's not your phone. Okay. Bill Emmer reviewed the processing times for exam applications, and apparently they're holding steady at 8 to 10 days, which is their targeted goal that he established when he first took over. He's reported that processing times for the evaluation services and licensing and CPE registry are all saw their target application processing time goals move to fewer days because they've gotten efficient. So I have to admit they have become a little more efficient in processing some of the applications data. The current experience evaluation service has been paused, but the work is being done. Hopefully to have it back up by the next board meeting, which would have been as of April. And I'm not sure it is or not, but I think they lost the person or the people that were assisting with that. So now they're trying to find some others. That's for the international candidates that do not have an actively licensed U.S. CPA that needs to sign off on their evaluations, their education, or their experience evaluations. The exam volume was up and is higher than 24, approaching pre-COVID numbers, which is why we're all having a little bit more excess revenue than we thought we would. NAS was continuing to monitor the bar and the FAR relative to the low volume of sections taken and the lower pass rates compared to the other sections, which we've looked at, where the bar and FAR are like the 49 to 52%, and the other sections are in the 70 and 80% pass rate. So they're still looking at that. And then there was a webinar in collaboration with the American Accounting Association on licensure pathways, specifically directed to the educators, i.e. the college professors, so they can reiterate to their potential candidates, students. And then Emmer announced the new CIO was fully transitioned into the position as supposed to be focusing on cybersecurity as well as evolving data governance and reporting. There's 53 jurisdictions now active participants in the ALD, so there's only 2 that are not. The task force was expanded to include 2 more executive directors working on a 2030 vision project, as well as a national candidate identification project. They're trying to get the national candidate IDs reported with the data that goes into the ALD, so they can, I guess, relate the grades and all back to the people there if they need to do research. I'm not sure. I think they also want to use the national candidate ID as one of the fields that they use to generate that code that allows you to associate multiple licenses in multiple states with a single individual, so that you can find out if, for instance, I'm licensed in Florida and Guam, they create a code that links everything together. So when you call up my record, you see all the licenses I have. I think that's the main reason they want to get the national candidate ID included in the database. So, okay, that's about it for that, more or less, that meeting. Got down here, they talked about update on the strategic planning task force, which they're trying to, I guess the focus is how the task force would function and give participants a better understanding of their role. They had a big meeting about how to actually conduct the task force itself, reviewed its mission and the ideal outcomes and how to avoid obstacles. And they noted, I guess they've added a seventh room, quote unquote, to the diagnostics to cover alignment. And I'm not sure what that exactly means, but I guess we'll find out in the near future when they start discussing it. The phases on the diagnostic and strategic plan and reiterating the ideal outcomes is to be proactive, forward thinking, substantive, and accepted by key constituents. So eventually we'll hear exactly what they plan to be doing strategically, I guess. Right now it's all in the let's get started phase for the most part. There's a, so which committee is this? Relations with member boards. They're discussing which jurisdictions directors should prioritize for potential board in-person virtual visits, how to increase board engagement, and what the role would be. They've discussed the regional calls and the questions for discussions on those calls being the quarterly discussion questions they create. Then they have committee members looking at updates to the new board member orientation training, which happens usually at the regional meeting for incoming board members. The executive director committee, Martin reported on the ED conference, had a tighter integration with legal counsel, which we did. It was interesting that the first day of the executive director conference, it's usually legal and executive directors together, but they start out the first day separately, and then we have a couple of joint sessions on the second day. This time we had the first day they put us all together in a joint session, and had a pretty interesting session due to the fact that you've got the executive directors responding to questions that the lawyers have been asking and vice versa. And it was interesting to see what the different perspectives were on how various things should be impacted or be affected or be carried out. But it helped, I think. The CPE committee, they're updating the standards. As we all know, they had 200 comments submitted to their exposure draft. So they were looking at having more hours of meetings, 4 more hours of meetings before they make their final recommendation, which I think should be coming out sometime at the regional meeting. We should hear what that is. And if that is if the ICPA approves their part of it. The CPE task force was looking for a plan to include a need for funding because of the breadth and scope of their work, which have a heavy focus on the rationale and future of CPE. So we'll be hearing about that too, I think, at the regional meeting. Joint UAA committee was broken into 3 separate task forces to tackle the uses in front of them, which include the definition of a test, ESOPs, and the placement of a state board of accountancy within state government and use of the CPA title. I'm not sure what that means by the placement of a state board of accountancy within state government. I couldn't get any more information on that yet. But I'm sure we'll hear about it. And the private equity task force we know has been meeting. Same thing with the ethics committee taking the lead on NASBA's response to the peak exposure draft. They wrote a letter saying that basically what everybody's been saying in their comments, that it's very convoluted, it's too detailed, and there's no way to actually enforce it. So they need to go back to the drawing board. The auditing committee reviewed a self-assessment, which was completed. The area the committee would like to have more education on is the internal controls for the organizations. Since the charge of the committee is to oversee audit and internal controls, they're talking about the NASBA audit committee relative to NASBA's internal controls. Ethics committee heavily involved in the peak exposure draft thing also. We've seen the outcome of that since this was back in January, I guess. The resolution of the board of directors for the territory of Puerto Rico, they required specific NASBA board action to provide its authority to sign a contract. He reported he's seeking approval to sign contracts with the territory of Puerto Rico. That was Dan. For some reason, they have some legal issue where they have to do these things for. It's Puerto Rico, the same thing for New Hampshire. I don't understand why it has something to do with the specific laws of those jurisdictions. So I guess something about you can't sign a contract unless you have some legal approval to be the person that signs. I don't know. Didn't make sense to me, but it only affects those two jurisdictions. There's an informational discussion around the AICPA Profession Ready initiative. In the council meeting that I attended a couple of weeks ago, they talked about the 2040 rising, something about creating I guess it's some kind of plan relative to the future of bringing the CPAs forward. The forward-thinking initiatives to what do we need to be doing within the next 10 years, 15 years to prepare for the future. And a lot of it has to do with how we respond to the AI that's coming up and how we use it and how actually control it, I guess, to some extent. Looking at what roles CPAs have that have been licensed from 1 to 4 years of being hired to perform and what skills, knowledge, and competencies are required. Same thing we've heard before. When they do the practice analysis thing. So some of that's uncover common skill deficits. And apparently, from what I heard at the council meeting, one of the bigger skills that are lacking is just the cognitive thinking and the ability to, evaluate things from a critical thinking standpoint, make decisions. That's just I guess what's become the major issue, and all of it is relative to the kids that coming out of school with the education, and how are they going to get the experience they need to be able to perform when a lot of the basic work that has always been done as part of your initial experience is going to be taken over by some of the AI or some of the robotic, the RPA, robotic process automation that can occur. The kids are going to come out of school with the education, but not be able to get that basic experience that all the rest of us got when we first started. So how are they going to get that and be able to get the experience to develop their critical thinking, I guess. That's kind of where they're going with that. They have phase one will be foundational and framework development. Phase two will be validation and finalization, with phase three being the exposure drafts to the public. The goal is to expose the findings of the research in 2027, with the issuance of a plan in 2028. So we'll be hearing about it a good bit in the next 6, 12, 18 months, I think. And then Dustin walked everybody through the MRAs with the South African Chartered Accountants and a tri-party MRA with Canada and Mexico. Apparently, the majority of jurisdictions accept the MRAs, but of course we do not. We don't have any need to. IQUAB suggested that the MRA be changed to have the experience requirements for eligibility to participate be aligned and established at 7 years post-qualification. They asked the board to accept the recommendation for approval of the South African MRA to include the 7-year requirement, and the motion passed. Same thing with the tri-party. They explained the only change was the new pathway and an amendment which would remove the requirement that a candidate have a subscription with CPA Canada. I don't know what that was all about, but that MRA got approved and signed anyway. Then they have John Johnson updated the board on the Alliance for Responsible Professional Licensing, the ARPL activities. And again, the Florida Society was leading the initiative to fight efforts to, like the one introduced in 2025, to get rid of the licensing board altogether. Not only for accounting, but for engineers and architects and everybody else. And then they talked about the deregulation toolkit that was recently released, as well as efforts to continue to focus on the key person contact and identified legislatures who can be called on should the need arise to counter deregulation efforts. And then Dan introduced Jessica Luttrell. She's the NASBA Director of Professional Standards and Research, and gave a presentation on the peak exposure draft. In jurisdictions that need more information to better understand the issues surrounding an alternative practice structures. And I think everybody's going to need a whole lot more information and a better understanding if it's ever going to work the way they're thinking about it. The Center for Public Trust is close to having its 60th chapter added, so they have 60 chapters. By now, they have the 60 chapters across the nation, including Guam. They have recent work on the CPA balance sheet bash, in which they travel throughout Alabama, spoke to over 115 students at 11 colleges. They had a fundraiser at last year's DASBA annual meeting, raised over $64,000. And that this year's golf tournament will be held on May 18th in Nashville. So I guess the CP, I'm not sure what meeting they have in May. And then Dr. Terry Herron is CPA for a 3-year position on the CPT board and director. She's currently on the Montana State Board, and she was approved for a term on the CPT board. That's basically all of the communications for the last quarter. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Great bedtime reading, so trying to give you a short summary. Now, the last thing we have is the financial statement. This is for Bay, and I had to estimate the applications fee revenues because it's too early in the month to get anything from NASBA. But I think it's pretty reasonable. My estimate was 26,000 for the month of May, and that's based on a 6-month rolling average and some other stuff, other info. I think it's pretty reasonable. So essentially we're looking at the 492 versus the 615, but if you take the 300 contribution out, the 315. So we're actually about 178,000 to the good if you don't take out the 300,000 contribution. And the way I see it, the projections I have, I think this 144,000 for individual licensing fees, that's essentially the renewal fees. And I know we're going to hit budget on the rest of the information, and we budgeted 400, and I'm pretty sure we'll wind up with a little over 400,000, which you throw another 250 in the mix, we're probably going to wind up with somewhere between 75 and 100,000 in excess revenues, even after our 300,000 contribution. So I don't see any issues with that. The expenditures are holding according to budget. That's not an issue. The postage looks a little high, but that's because then we have to, we send things by FedEx and we charge people for it, and then sometimes we get the payments on an after the fact basis to some extent. So there'll be some offset with that. But I'm looking at the fact that we have $1.3 million in the bank, and we're not really earning very much on it. And even though we've already contributed to 300,000 this year, we could actually contribute a lot more if we think that we're going to be better off having it earn money in the endowment fund versus sitting in the Bank of Guam for a 0.001 interest rate of $30 a month on 1.3 million. I don't know if the board wants to consider that, but I don't see any reason we couldn't actually contribute another 500 to the endowment fund.
500, wow.
Where we're at earning. Well, we've never really had an issue with expenses, and considering the fact that we always based our restricted fund balance on 3 years worth of expenses, and we've got that covered, but we always have. And we no longer depend on the test center revenues like we used to. So that was one of the bigger issues of losing revenues. So I'm thinking at this point that we wouldn't have a problem if we put in another 500,000. We'd still have 800,000 in the bank. But to have a $500,000 earning 5 or 6% versus 0.001 would definitely make a difference. And given the language in the latest budget act, we're able to basically contribute whatever we can up to whatever revenues we have. So, including our existing fund balances. So, I don't see any reason we couldn't do that if we wanted to. So, just something to think about maybe for the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to, I would, suggest not necessarily all 500 at one time, maybe 3 and then 2 or something, or 250 and then 250.
Yeah, we can do that. I think what investment people have been doing, we give the contribution and then they hold it to determine when's the best time to make the investment. I guess it's the old buy the dip strategy. Who knows? But I know that when we've contributed before, they don't invest it all at once or all at the same time. Yeah. But I really don't know what their process is in determining when or how or what. So, but yeah, we could do that.
I'm looking at more, if you contribute 500, that may draw more attention than just contributing 250 at a time.
Okay, we can do that too. Not a problem. The other thing I'll tell you is that, we did the small procurement for the attorney. Fred Horky was the one that responded, and we signed off on that with Fred, and it went to the AG's office for approval, and it's unfortunately still sitting in the AG's office for approval. And Beth has been following up. We've been calling a couple times a week to, hey, is it going? Is it in? All they tell us is it's in the stack with everybody else in the order that it was received, and it will eventually be signed. So I don't know how we move it forward more than that. I'm not sure I know anybody that can call the AG's office and harangue him about it. So we're still waiting for the thing. It's been there for about 5 weeks now, and we're still waiting for it to be signed. So it has to go from the AG's office to the governor's office. So
Okay.
I'm not sure when we're going to be able to actually start talking to Fred about doing anything. So anyway, just so you know, that's where we're at with that.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions, concerns? John, you and Tulling are both coming to the regional meeting.
Oh yeah, yeah. I arrived Monday, I think. Monday night or
Okay.
Monday night.
Yeah, I think I got there late Monday afternoon or Monday night. Yeah. The
So I'll be
meeting
leaving
starts. So
noon.
yeah,
I'll be
meeting
leaving
starts.
Right.
Okay. Meeting starts Tuesday at noon. I think it's registration, or noon or 2 o'clock, something like that. Okay. Well, there's no other issues. I don't know if anybody plans to attend the annual meeting in October. It's October 23, 24, and 25. And I believe it's in Nashville. I'm not sure. I have to check.
Arizona, I think. Arizona.
It's Arizona this year. Yeah. Yeah. There's another meeting they plan to have in Nashville. Maybe it's the executive director meeting next.
I'd like to go if they have a scholarship and, there's enough to cover whoever else wants to go.
Okay.
We should at least get 2 people to go every meeting. So it
Yeah, I
seems.
mean, there's no reason not to ask. And I think with the way things are going, they keep earning extra revenue. They should be able to afford it. So anybody wants to go, let me know.
Mhm. We have to look at our schedules. It's
Yeah.
October, still too far away for me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, don't wait too long, because the farther away you book your airfare, the better off you are.
Oh, yeah, it was kind of pricey now.
Yeah, it even gets, and the closer you get, the worse it gets. I mean, I think it's to your advantage to book at least 2 to 3 months ahead of time if you can,
Mhm.
but a minimum of 6 or 8 weeks. Anyway, okay, well, there's no other issues. I'll see John. I'll see you in Tallinn next week in Park City, Utah, I guess.
Yes.
I think it's about a 30-minute ride from the Salt Lake Airport to Park City.
Okay.
So,
Catch a cab or Uber.
yeah, they have some information. I'll email it to you. They have some information on the NASFA website about booking a cab in advance or something like that. I guess
Okay.
it might be a smart idea depending on what time you're arriving. Well, anyway, I'll email it to you just so you guys
Okay.
know.
That's good.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So there's no other matters to discuss. Can I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Francis. Can I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. So meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Oh, I
Okay.
did have a question. Do we usually skip July meeting, or are we still holding it? You'll figure that out later.
Well, generally we can skip it. It usually falls right around the Liberation Day, so we kind of have to figure out.
Yeah,
But
I guess.
we can skip it. It's not that big a deal.
No, I'm not. I was just checking to see if there was if there was already a discussion regarding that. But no, I'll be here.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it yet, but I'll take a look and let you know what day it falls on and how it relates to Liberation Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Nothing
All right.
else. Well,
Anything else?
everybody, you guys have a good evening. I'm gonna
And a good
go.
morning.
I'm gonna go to sleep soon.
Thanks and safe travels.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a good day. And bye
You too.
now.
Bye-bye.